Hello and welcome back to On the Spot. My name is Sharmeen Thomas and this is part of our Mother's Day mini series. Today's conversation is about something deeper. We're going to unpack something known as intergenerational trauma, and my guest for today is Saijel Dheda. Saijel, welcome to On the Spot. Before we go ahead, I should warn you that at the end as we wrap towards the end of our chat today, you will be hit by a rapid fire round.
Cool, sounds good. Looking forward to it.
I love it.
I got all the hard questions.
Well, I think it's more fun questions, but we'll kind of stick to the topic. Saijel, for anyone who doesn't know anything about intergenerational trauma, in really layman terms, what is it really?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question, because I think we hear the word trauma and immediately our brain, especially our South Asian brain, starts to panic and we start to minimize our experience. So intergenerational trauma essentially is trauma that has been experienced, but it hasn't been able to be expressed in any way. And it's passed down through the generations and it shows up maybe 3 to 4 generations later. And it doesn't show up quite the same as how the trauma was experienced by the original experience. It shows up differently. And that's a lot of what we have in our lives, and it shows up in the way we behave, the way that we parent, the way that we communicate. And I think a big one for us is our relationships, especially between men and women.
Right. And just going a little further into that, what does it look like? Like maybe a few examples.
Yeah, for sure. So a lot of my clients, I think especially women as well, at the moment showing up as eating disorders, low mood, depression, relationships. A lot of that can be, shutting down, emotional suppression, feeling overwhelmed at times and not knowing how to connect in with our emotions as well. Another one that's big, I think, for South Asian community as well is the money mindset, where we have a scarcity mindset and we find ourselves, budgeting or feeling overwhelmed when a lot of our basic needs are met. There's not a need to panic, but because the experience that our ancestors did experience, we find ourselves going into that survival mode. And that also can show up in the way that we parent our children as well.
But, it sounds like we don't really think of these as problems. We just think that this is how we are and it is what it is. So how does one identify this as actually being an issue? And is it really a problem?
No, that's a really good question. And I think for a lot of us, it's a disconnect from who we're supposed to be. And it's stopping us from being able to break those cycles. Like that lack of awareness is what's stopping us from being able to break those cycles. I would say that it transfers through parenting to our children and can create a lot of mental health issues when it's not addressed, And I think, like you said, a lot of this is very normal things that we don't see as issues. And I think that's what's really important in the South Asian community, that we do begin to highlight them and we begin to bring our awareness to these things that are quite often creating low mood, depression, anxiety, eating disorders, because all of that does show up and impact on not just our physical health, but our mental health too.
Now, you've specified, like you've emphasized on South Asian communities. So I'm assuming your work is more in that area?
Yeah, definitely. So when I began this work, I drew from my own lived experience. That was the main driver. I had been, turning up in my life and wasn't really sure why these things were coming up or why I felt the way that I felt. But when I started looking at the experience of my ancestors, so my family migrated to New Zealand. My grandfathers migrated both when they were children, and they got married. They went to India to get married and brought their wives. Their wives were obviously very young as well. So
that would be your grandmothers.
Yeah, both my grandmothers on my mother and my father's side. So that experience of, being a child yourself and being forced to marry, that experience of migrating to a country where you don't speak the language. My grandfather's also experienced racism. There was a lot of racism in New Zealand, particularly in Pukekohe, where my maternal grandfather grew up. He was also subject to a lot of discrimination.
This would have been the early 1900s?
Yeah. So myself entering into, adulthood and into romantic relationships myself, I noticed a lot of myself showing up to these relationships, feeling like I needed to prove myself to my partner, serve myself to my partner, or also, the minimizing of my own needs and my own emotions. And I just felt like it wasn't consistent or didn't feel authentic to who I was. So this is when I began to question, who am I and why do I feel a lot of this? And, going back and thinking about the stories that my grandmothers would talk about when, I was a little girl, just, listening to them cry, listening to talk about how much of their childhood they lost. And it really hit me. And I thought to myself, this feels, a lot of what they're describing is their pain. It feels like that's also what I've experienced, but I wasn't the one who migrated. But that's what prompted me to do my research, to study intergenerational trauma, and particularly looking at my experience and my ancestors' experience and how it has transferred from my grandmothers to my parents and then to me through parenting, so there's a thing called epigenetics. So epigenetics talks about the expression of genes. And so that essentially means that our DNA carries the traumatic experiences from our ancestors. And it is scientifically proven that it is passed on to future generations.
It's probably why we say, oh, it's just in my genes.
Yeah, 100%. So a lot of it's passed down in a very nuanced. And there's the other thing that I like to call is like the transgenerational atmosphere, which is, you have children yourself, that way that you unconsciously parent. And I always say it's not about what we teach our kids. It's actually about that atmosphere that they grow up in, where, are we anxious about money? Are they picking up on that? And how is that going to impact on the way that they perceive themselves when it comes to spending money?
Gosh, Saijel, if there weren't already so many reels and memes and books on parenting now, this is an additional thing. But I always believe, and I like to think about some of these things, and I think which is why I'm so interested in this particular topic. I feel like as individuals, we have two choices: to either be like our parents or to not be like them, or to kind of take the best of what we can get from them. Right? Like, for example, mother-in-laws, right? There's a set of thinking where mother-in-laws are like, in particular, they're like, well, I wasn't treated well by my mother-in-law, so that's how I'm going to be with my daughter-in-law, right? And that's not breaking the pattern. Whereas there's a set of thinking, well, my mother-in-law didn't treat me well, and I would never do that to my daughter-in-law. So that inherent difference, how does someone identify that and decide that they want to do this? How does one become aware of this?
No, that's a really good question, because I think, like we've said, it is such a, and this is the thing that my research highlighted, was a lot of how insidious it is, that it's so much of it is very unconscious, that if it's not in our awareness, how do we even know it's something that we need to change, right? And I think the biggest thing is to take a really, really good look at your family and decide if this is how you want your children to be raised, Because I think there's all those things that we look at ourselves and we're like, I would never do that. Things that our parents did, I don't want to be like that. Or the relationships that our parents have to their grandparents as well. I would say a lot of it is taking that initiative to look at the relationships and look at things on a systemic level rather than an individual level. Stop looking at the struggles that you experience as just being your own and begin to, okay, why am I overwhelmed? Why am I feeling tired all the time? Why can't I sit still?
Because sometimes you kind of do things without realizing you're doing it. You're like, I don't want to do this, but I've still done it.
Yeah. It's about questioning the things that we don't usually question and being curious about where it's coming from and wanting to also, create and break cycles.
I think that's the key, right? Wanting to change it and break that cycle is key. But I feel like there are people who are like, they don't either take the time out or the effort out to do that. So what are some effective ways to maybe break these kind of patterns?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's always that one change maker in the family, and I myself can relate to that. And I think specifically in South Asian culture, this is like another intergenerational thing where you have one person that is trying to break the cycle, and quite often they are pushed out, or they're shamed, or there's a lot of guilt created.
Or dismissed.
Yeah. We've all had that auntie or that cousin or someone that hasn't done things exactly how they were supposed to.
Yeah.
And that has created almost this disconnect within the family, right? And so a lot of what we need to do as South Asian people is we need to begin to understand why we feel so frustrated or overwhelmed by this idea of things changing as well. Questioning why we feel like we want to stay stuck, because that's also an aspect of the trauma where